Hello, my beautiful people. Hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to today's latest news. The former president arrives with all the clear ideas of what is going to be if he is re-elected in Casablanca this year, 2024, and he has just announced that he is going to change the country's jail system because he says that it is a corrupt system, and in addition to that, he has mentioned that he is going to reform the fact that the jail system is corrupt. He cited, for instance, the recent trial that the former president was facing in New York, and as we all know, the virtual Republican candidate for the presidency of the United States, Donald Trump, stated that he is going to reform this judicial system of the American country, which he considers to be a completely corrupt system. This is one of the most important words that he has ever said. I just went through a trial in New York that was rigged, and there was evidence that was what Donald Trump said to his followers during a community meeting in the state of Arizona. This took place on his first visit to the state after his guilty conviction. Let's not forget that the trial was rigged. A criminal trial was held against the former president, in which he was accused of committing 34 offenses, all of which were related to the falsification of his company paperwork in order to conceal his relationship with Stormy Daniels during his campaign for the presidency in 2016. In any case, we are going to be developing this story today, and how, despite the fact that he has been labeled as a convicted criminal, Donald Trump was able to sweep the final stretch of the Republican primaries in the United States. They are aware that the trial was rigged. It is a corrupt system, but with your assistance, in less than 5 months we will change the system, were the words that he spoke to his followers when referring to the elections that will take place on November 5th, when he will compete against Democrat Joe Biden in his attempt to sit in the White House once more. We need to know what happens in those courts, which was what assured to justify his decision, the Republican candidate, who has by no means ruled out the possibility that he could go against his political enemies if he returns to the presidency, given that in a recent interview on the Fox News television network, Donald Trump suggested that he had every right to go ahead and do so. Against his political enemies, in case of being re-elected during yesterday's Thursday forum convened by the conservative youth organization Turning Point, one of the main topics was undocumented immigration and the economy, because at that time, Donald Trump attacked again of the immigration policies that President Biden's administration has, ensuring that under his mandate the United States has become a dumping ground for criminals and mentally ill people from other countries to achieve the electoral support he sought in November. He made a commitment to immediately arrest and deport anybody who crossed the border illegally, as well as to activate the army to assist with border protection. Additionally, he reaffirmed that he will immediately put an end to the executive order that was signed by Vice President Biden this week. This order significantly restricts asylum at the border by assuring that it is not a security strategy, but rather a surrender to the reality that he has lost control of a border. He stated that he will immediately put an end to this executive order. He brought attention to the fact that he is dominating the voting intention and that, according to a recent survey conducted by the ABC network, he is gaining the support of Latino voters. The region is considered a swing state, and its 11 electoral votes are what might decide who will be the next president in November of 2020. Donald Trump has received 41 ballots in favor, while Joe Biden has received only 3 votes. The fact that Arizona voted in support of Biden came as a surprise to many. A candidate for the Republican Party bid farewell to the general public with an enthusiastic, "We will emerge victorious in the magnificent state of Arizona. We are going to save this state now." He also gave his support to the Republican candidate for the Arizona Senate, Kari Lake, who is a faithful follower of Trump and has defended the former president's theory that there was electoral fraud in 2020. During his return to Arizona, in addition to hugging former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was convicted of engaging in practices of racial profiling against Latino drivers while he was on the job, he also gave his support to Kari Lake. You're absolutely correct. It would appear that he has been found guilty of 34 counts of fabricating accounting papers in order to conceal a bribe and quiet Stormy Daniels. Gentlemen, this sentence has been handed down. It would appear that this has worked out in Donald Trump's advantage rather than having a negative impact on his candidacy for the presidency. Since last Thursday, when this New York jury found him guilty in the first criminal trial against a former president for the first time in the history of the United States. According to their campaign, the support for his campaign has surged tremendously. This is the case because the jury found him guilty of more than anything else against a former president. On the day after the ruling, they had already raised $35 million through tiny donations made online, and in addition to that, on Tuesday of last week, they had completely destroyed the remaining portion of the on the basis of the primaries, which were held in 4 states. The former president, who was released without bail following this hearing, emerged as the only viable candidate of the Republican Party in states such as New Mexico, New Jersey, and Montana. In South Dakota, on the other hand, the tycoon was the only participant in the process in total. Donald Trump took 94 delegates with majorities all above 80% in those states. Despite arriving at this process as labeled a convicted criminal this day, the first and the last after being found guilty was a simple process because the magnate had already exceeded the threshold of delegates which would allow him to be declared as a Republican candidate next July, which will be a mention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin a few days after his sentence is known, which will be announced, as we well know, by the judge of Colombian origin. Juan Manuel merchant Donald Trump could easily be sentenced to 4 years in prison for each charge. However, despite the fact that it is definitely more than probable that he will be granted conditional parole, he would still be able to continue his career and return to the White House. This is the case. It is the most fascinating thing that many people believe that this whole issue of trials and the fact that they want to convict him is going to prevent him from going to the elections. However, gentlemen, it is more like Donald Trump, where he is currently being held in the same prison behind bars, could go to the elections. We are talking about the fact that he is going to achieve a revenge against the same rival that Joe Biden had 4 years ago. We shall see this in the elections that will take place